Hello everyone, welcome to the
Hi
next
there.
episode of the Digital Mittelstand. My name is Can, and with this podcast, I help small and medium businesses to overcome their digital transformation challenges. Today, I have Alexander Steiner with me, and without any further ado, Alexander, can you please introduce yourself to us?
Sure, Ken. Thank you very much. Welcome to this podcast also from me. My name is Alexander Steiner, as already told. I'm working for a company called Proc, which is delivering an RPA product, which is a little bit further than a standard RPA product. And nevertheless, I started with my work in the traditional outsourcing services. Then I entered the area of autonomous IT systems, so systems which are able to identify issues in IT systems and mitigate them by themselves. After that, I went to artificial intelligence. I was working with an artificial intelligent chatbot is a little bit too low, it's a little bit more, but it's a virtual assistant. And after doing that, I wanted to go back to the, let's say, mitigation of issues and helping people with their daily work. And I found RPA as a very interesting area, even it's not such high sophisticated and rocket science like the typical artificial intelligence and cognitive systems. But it can help on a very easy and on a very quick way. And that's what I always wanted in my professional life, help people doing their job better and doing their real core business. Now I'm working for Proc since 3 years also already. And I'm the chief solution architect, and I'm also tagged as the Evangelist because it's also one of our
the superstar of the company, I know.
Yeah, and because we say we not only want to sell our product, we want to sell RPA as such, which is very important for us to give the people the right understanding of RPA. And therefore we have that also in the company. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn where you see all these little hints I can give you.
Yeah, and I will be happy to share your LinkedIn profile in the description. And as you said, RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. Just for our audience, maybe they are not familiar with the abbreviation.
Yeah.
But you had made a point that Metaproc makes something more than RPA. Can you please explain that first of all?
Yeah. So RPA, as most of the people know, is a task-based technology which mimicking tasks people doing on their daily business, on their workplace. So clicking mouse buttons, pressing buttons on the keyboard, doing processes while doing that. So logging into a program, cutting things, pasting things, putting things in the right places. At the end of the day, this is not what most of the people want. They want to have a highly integrated automation landscape where everything is working in the background. So, for example, if you want to add a new customer into all your core systems, this should happen in the background. Nobody should take care of that. That's the end game they want to have. And what we found out is that if you take an RPA tool as the first mitigation of your problems and to help you with your challenges, it's very difficult to come to that end point because you have to change the tools once or twice. And because you spend a lot of time training the first tool, you have a very high overhead to train the second tool and the third tool. And therefore we said the real objective we have is to bring the people into the full automated environment. And RPA is one of the steps to bring them there. And so we combined RPA with the process automation engine, which gives you the chance to replace RPA very easily with back-end tasks step by step. So you start with a manual processing of a business process, and then you put RPA in the places where it fits and only where it fits, and keep the things manually which are not able to be automated. and then you bring it more and more into RPA. And as soon as you have the APIs and the back end available, which helps you to do it in the back end with background automations, for example, on REST interfaces or whatever is available, you can then replace the single RPA task with a command line for the back end, or you can also replace complete sub-process parts with it, so that at the end you run everything, or it's most a wish to run everything in the back end without any front end device you need any longer.
Yeah, so that sums up the holistic approach to
exactly
not only to RPA but to process management.
Yeah.
So this is process orchestration, right?
Yeah, many people also call it hyper automation, while hyper automation, if you ask 5 people, you get 10 answers. What is hyper automation? It's the same with, with RPA and everything. But many people understand hyper automation as everything is automated. And there is a good joke where people say, I give you an automation tool which delivers 50% automation, and the customer says, okay, then I take it twice. So, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, but coming to Mittelstand, is RPA in Mittelstand really possible?
I think especially in Mittelstand, RPA is a very valid approach to start with automation and to keep automation in the range of budgets you have available. So in the Mittelstand, and that's what's my experience, is that the challenges are almost the same like in the large companies. So they have same kind of tools, they have same kind of processes. Mostly they are given by the government. So for example, if you look at GDPR and all these things, you have to give any information about the customer within 72 hours and everything. So this is exactly the same like an international company which has thousands of people has. But nevertheless, they don't have the same budget, and they have a different way they are working, because they are more focused on the employees. It's more traditional. Most of the companies are driven by the founder, still by the founder. And so they have very traditional processes, and it's very difficult to use these processes to bring them into a standard automation with interfaces and everything like that. And they still have their old applications. That's also one of the points we should keep in mind. So many of these companies had homegrown applications, and they don't even have these interfaces. And people which build that applications are still not in the company, so they have no chance to build that. And if you want to have an automation which is built on everything you're doing today, and you don't want to change the process, and you want to have still a hybrid automation and manual work on your daily business, RPA is a very good way to start. And in opposite to a really back-end automation, if you automate 10% of your work with RPA, you save 10% of your time. So this doesn't really work if you do it in the back end, because then you can do anything or nothing. So if you have a process built on the back end and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If the process is built on RPA and RPA doesn't work, you still have your workforce which can do it manually. This is a very good thing with a very low risk to step into automation. And therefore, I think in the Mittelstand, because they can get a quick win, they have a very moderate budget to do it, and they can, let's say, train the people on a very easy way to do it by themselves is one of the key factors to do it that way.
Yeah, and you said key factors. Let me build up on that. What are the success factors for an RPA project in Mittelstand for them to move even further?
Yeah, I think it's on the one hand side, you have the technical part. On the other hand side, you have the people business you do. And as already mentioned, especially in the Mittelstand, due to a more working network in the company, it's also very important to bring the people on board as early as possible, and not only the people, but also the internal organizations, so like working councils, security officers, IT, because people are talking to each other. And in the past, many people used RPA to build an IT department beside the official IP department. And that not really works in the Mittelstand, because the IT will get that information and you get in trouble. Same with the working council. You cannot install any software on your laptop, which is maybe in the worst case observing your work to get the information how it works without the approval of the working council. Absolutely not possible in Germany. So that means if you tell people what you want to do, tell them the truth, make it transparent, bring them on board, because they also have your knowledge about the processes. And that's the next thing, which is a success factor. Understand your processes. And there is a very big gap between what is written in documentations and how the process is really done. So it's an interpretation of what is written, if it's written. So in most of the cases, it's even not written. But however, if it's written down, people doing it a different way. So we have been in a situation, we sat in a workshop, and there have been 3 people doing the same process. And everybody was surprised that everybody of these guys did it a different way. And he said, I take the information from that place. I take the information from that place. And that's very interesting to see. Bringing the people on board and also listen carefully, because there are many things they are doing which is not really in their mind. So, for example, if I ask you how you make how you wake up in the morning and how your day is until you start working, you will tell me about 30 or 40%, because I would say 60% is working in the background in your mind, and you don't remember. And now if you ask people, how do you do this process? They also will act like this. They will tell you 40% what they do. And if you ask them, where you get that information from? Oh, I have that on a sheet of paper is lying beside my laptop. Or how do you get this number out of this number? I take my calculator and calculate the number. So this is done without any recognition by the people themselves, because they're doing it day by day. So it means looking these people over the shoulder, look at your documentation. And after you have seen your documentation, see how people are doing that. And then really build your process in a very detailed way. And another success factor is don't under and overestimate RPA. So there are 2 different people we are working with. The first group is the people which are underestimating RPA. These are the people which are listening to marketing things where everybody is telling you you are 2 clicks ahead of a robotic process automation, which is doing everything for you and more. So they buy a product, try to play with it, and fail. It's natural that they fail, because they are not 2 clicks away. They are 20 clicks or 200 clicks away. And especially they need to understand what they are doing, and they have to think in processes. This is very important. The second type of group is overcomplicating what RPA is doing for them and how they can implement RPA. They see all these bits and pieces. They see, oh, I have no processes which are similar and which have low complexity. We're doing everything different than other people. It's always the same you hear here. And they say, we have the security issues and everything. So there are a lot of things where you can say, RPA doesn't work for me. At the end of the day, I always say, guys, if you are doing things other than others, and 100 people doing it like a best practice, why are you doing it a different way? So there must be a reason. And if you go in the discussion, you find out they only think they do things different, because they never talk to these other peoples where they think they do things another way. Another thing is that they say, I have everything on paper and I cannot do this because first I have to digitize. Can be done by RPA. So that means the key to do it is to have an employee or people which can do the RPA. If they cannot do it, there are a lot of people on the market which can do it for you. So it's your choice to do it by yourself or let it be done by any kind of implementation company, and understand what you are doing. So thinking in processes, and understand that everything you're doing is a process, and make sure that you understand that the most beneficial processes are the processes you're not thinking about, because that are the repetitive processes you're doing every day and you don't even think about them.
Definitely. But that's why process mining is there also. It could help companies to understand how they think the processes work and how de facto the processes work. But can you name a couple of use cases for RPA when possible, please, for the Mittelstand?
Yeah, sure. So as already mentioned, there are a lot of paperwork they are doing. There's a lot of tiny things they are working on. And one of these things is, for example, if they are in the business-to-business market, they get lists sent out from their business partners, and the information from that lists needs to be distributed across the end customer. So, for example, if you have a business partner with 200 customers which are giving you money every month, so could be somebody from the energy sector, can be somebody from buildings, so facility management or everything. You get one bill and you get all information in an Excel sheet. So Mr. A spent 2,000 euros, Mr. B spent that and that. At the end, the companies have their own database and every end customer is listed in there. So I had the situation that people printed out these Excel sheets, take a lineal, put it under each line and put that in their core system. Oh. Is one of these cases. So making sure that information coming from your business partners are added to your own core systems. And in most of the cases, the business partner deliver you the data like they want. So if you are in the lucky situation that you can tell your business partners how they have to deliver the data, and if you give them a portal to use it, you can really be lucky, because in most of the cases, this doesn't work. They send you a fax, they give you information, and you see it even with this COVID situation. The Gesundheitsämter get all the information via fax, via email and everything. So even there, it doesn't work. So it's very unrealistic to think that it works in Mittelstand companies as well. Another case is if you have a huge base on customer, they will move, they will change their banking accounts, they will change their any kind of things. So all their data needs to be changed. So you get a mail, hi, my name is XXL. I moved from Koblenz to Bonn, here's my new address. There is nearly nobody beside the people which have a formula on their web page which can do that automatically. And even then, it's very hard to believe that everybody is using that formula. Yeah. So that means all this kind of data change, data manipulation is also very important. Another case which we found is merger and acquisition or migration efforts. So especially in the Mittelstand, there is in some areas, in some verticals, there's a huge amount of mergers and acquisitions. Companies are merging, other companies buying other companies. And then you have a different system which is not compatible with your core systems. So how you get this information, option A, synchronized, so keeping both systems in place, or B, migrated into your existing system. So in both cases, RPA can help you, because especially in the migration case, why do you want to spend 500,000 or €1 million into an interface if you only need it once? Because after migration, you throw the old system away. Yeah. So even the process of migration is completely crappy. However, if you as long as you can automate it, do it. even if people say even a crappy process, a crappy automated process is still a crappy process, doesn't care, because even if it's automated and you don't to take care about it, do it this way. We also had a situation also in the Mittelstand area in the IT systems, where they wanted to move or synchronize data from a customer-owned ticket system to a service provider ticket system and vice versa. And there also, this is what I already mentioned in the beginning, it was very important. We had already the chance to connect to the customer-owned ticket system via interface. So we could do a completely background integration here because the customer let us do that. On the other hand, the service provider said, I'm your service provider. The only chance to get our data, the data out of our system is take the web browser, take the data out of there, copy them and paste them in your own system. So we built a robot in between, which was doing that work. And the interesting thing while we were doing that is because, especially this is also one of the success factors, do it agile, because the plan you build to build an RPA robot already is unsuccessful right from the second step, because you will face problems you never thought before about. So here it was that we built that, and at the end we found out there is such a huge amount of data we have to scan and to identify and to analyze, because the ticket system is not only updating the ticket status, but is also putting in reporting data in these tickets. Yeah. So each ticket they had had hundreds of updates per day, which have absolutely no chance to be transferred. And it doesn't make sense to transfer it because this information are not required in the customer system. So we built another robot who analyzed the data, picked out the real relevant data, and then this relevant data only have been transferred, have been enriched, because in the customer system, also additional information has been needed, because the system was not only for this service provider, but also to store tickets from other service providers as well. So during that phase, we started and said, okay, we can do that in 1 month. At the end, it took 6 months, nevertheless, but because the things changed during we did it. Yeah. And also while we were doing it, the customer had new ideas and said, okay, let's do a check here. If the data are still valid, this is also something which was not in the mind, because people normally couldn't do that with their amount of time they had for doing it. Yeah. So that means synchronizing data is also a very interesting case. And another very interesting case is, for example, it's not the real amount of tickets which are being processed, but it's the time you save in your company. For example, if you deal with access rights, a company typically has 10, 12 core systems people are working with. And if you have a company with 1,000 employees, it's still Mittelstand, or it's even more is Mittelstand. You have changes in the access rights for different tools. And also, if you have a service center, it's the same. So if you have an external service center, you have to give these people access to the system. And if you have only a limited number of people in HR, this can cause delay times of 14 days until these people can work. So that means somebody comes into your company and then you tell him, okay, you can start in 2 weeks. Until then, maybe make coffee or do some copies or do something.
Read these instructions.
This means 14 days. It's depressing these people because they cannot work. That's one of the cases. The other thing is this person is sitting on the bench for 14 days, earning money, and is not working or cannot work. So that means the business case is not working the process itself. It's also to reduce the time until people can start working. Yeah. And this is also something you need to have in mind. There are 2 kinds of business cases. The first is the direct business case. Count the number of process instances, count the time people manually need for it, and see how many these people earn. So what's the salary of these people? That's a typical case. You can read in every newspaper, and they tell you if you have 300 or 100 cases per day, RPA is working for you from the business case. But nevertheless, there is also a very huge group of indirect business cases. That means the effect of doing it to another thing is higher than the effect itself. Another case is, for example, you have to deliver something until the 1st of December. But because of your reduced workforce, for example, due to COVID or something else, it is not possible. So you have to spend money because you haven't delivered on time. Can be very expensive. Another thing is a person is entering data in your production system manually, and he is shifting a comma 1 digit.
Oh.
So now, yeah, now the customer gets a piece which is 10 meters instead of 1 meter. So you waste your material, you waste time, and in the worst case, you have to pay the company because you are not delivering in time. So this is also such a case, which is very important.
Yeah. Thank you for the use cases, and I think they gave a great perspective for our audience. What could be only a couple of out of tens of thousands of
Sure.
use cases for robotic process automation. And just to make things even more simple, a robot is a piece of software. So two robots will be two different sets of software. They can work simultaneously, they can work individually. So those things are actually not as complicated as they sound like. But yeah, Alexander, thank you for sharing your expertise and for these various use cases where we hear often from the Mittelstand. But before we close, what would be your top suggestion for Mittelstand owners, Mittelstand managers to imply right away?
I think they should start to identify real processes. So they can use process mining, as you already mentioned. Nevertheless, this is interesting, but not really the first step. Look in your company, look if everything is written down. Do you have documented processes? Speak to your people if they have pain, because it's nice to look into an analyze and see there is the top talker, but in most of the cases, the top talkers in that analysis are the boring cases. So go into your branches, go into your offices, ask the people, what's your pain? Because in the past, we have seen people first worked in their isolated environment. So if you have somebody in financial or in controlling, they did their work. And in the last years, they get more and more different work. So you get a diversity on the role. They didn't only do their typical or their core role. They also ask for expenses. They maybe, if you have somebody in sales who did his travel by themselves, so they talk to the travel agency. That was all work they didn't do 10 years ago. They had an assistant which did it. So ask the people which of their work can be done by an assistant. It's the easiest question. And if they tell you this can be done by an assistant, this can be done by an assistant. And if you have 10 people telling you the same, then you have a good candidate for an RPA tool, because an RPA robot is nothing else than an assistant. Or another thing, which somebody from another company, I work together. So Julian from Freudenberg, maybe you have heard from him, said, if you have a huge amount of practicants in your company, look what they are doing. So this is a typical work you can give to a robot.
Yeah.
But this helps.
Students needs to find internship. So yeah, that could be a good point to develop the robots, the interns themselves, right?
Yeah, sure. And that means be careful. Don't underestimate the effort. Don't believe everything you see in marketing. This is also something. Take it with you. look in every documentation carefully, read documentations, and also make you sure to think about your steady state, as we call it. So that means, what do you want to have in 5, 6, 7 years? Don't look for tools which maybe solve your immediate problems. Because as I already mentioned in the beginning, if you start with a tool and it only helps you for half a year or a year, you will have additional effort to replace it by the next tool. So if you look a little bit further in the past, you may find a tool which helps you for a longer term and which makes you more successful and satisfied by RPA, because what we see in the past is that there is not really a scale in RPA as we want to have it. And this is one of the reasons. The other reason is, as you already mentioned, if you put a robot beside a second robot, this still works. If you put 4 robots in place, this might also still work. But if you come to a place where you say, I need 20, 40 robots or something like that, it's a completely different ballpark you're working in, because you need administration like you need it with your people. So robots, to administrate robots is nothing different than managing people. If you have 40 people sitting there, it's unrealistic that you have one team leader who can take care of all their needs and all their possibilities. And it's the same for robots.
Yeah, thank you for the great analogy. And I believe it's quite valid for our case. And thank you, Alexander. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for your expertise. And it was so nice having you. And once again, thank you for sharing your experiences with us.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. And for our audience, I release a video, an episode per week. So if you want more videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe, and ciao.